Hello, and welcome to this presentation on creating marketing buyer personas. This is me. I'm Valerie Barrow. I work as an independent marketing consultant and a professor of marketing. So you may be watching this presentation today because you're one of my clients, or there's a good chance you're watching it because I've assigned it to you as part of one of my classes. The information in today's presentation comes from a variety of sources, and I wanted to start by quickly giving appropriate credit to those sources. I have primarily pulled this information from my own personal experience working over the years, but I've also taken some information from a book called The New Rules of Marketing and PR by David Meerman Scott, and from HubSpot, an inbound marketing and lead nurturing company. Both are great sources of information, and I highly recommend them. So let's start with some definitions. What is a buyer persona? Well, when you create a buyer persona, you're basically taking everything you could possibly imagine about your customers and distilling it down into a description of one person. What you then have is a semi-fictional representation of a buyer that has a specific interest in your organization or product, or they have a problem that your product or service solves. Creating this semi-fictional persona is a really great place to start for any marketing initiative. What it does is it allows you to get inside the mind of your customer so you understand their goals and the behaviors. It also allows you and the other people you work with, like your sales team or your customer service teams, to start creating a common language about your buyers. But probably most importantly, it makes it easier for you to create content that addresses the needs of your customers. So how do you create buyer personas? What you're looking at here is a blank buyer persona description. I'm going to go through this and then I'm going to show you an example from one of my projects. You can see on this slide that there's room for a photo of your persona, a fun descriptive name, an actual name, and then we get into lots and lots of details about this person. We look at who are they. So we're going to look at their demographics, such as their gender, their age, education. We want to know what their job is. Do they have a title? What kind of company do they work at? How big is that company? What industry is it in? And what are their general job responsibilities? What is a day in their life like? Describe what an average day is like for them. What are they doing before they get to work? Who are they dealing with at work? What kinds of decisions are they making? You want to look at what are their primary pain points. So describe the primary challenges they're trying to overcome, and then relate that to your product or service. What do they value most, and what are their goals? Explain what your persona values most in making a purchase decision. Is it price? Is it support? What are they trying to accomplish? Where are they going for information? Identify the primary sources they use to gather their information. Where do they research? What information are they using to actually make the purchase decision? What social communities do they belong to? Identify what profiles they have, what sites are they on, how often are they using it, and how are they interacting? Look at what's important to them when selecting a vendor or a product or a service. List what is most important to them. Is it being a technology leader? Is it a product that has proven experience? Are they solely shopping on price? And this one is really important. What are their most common objections? List the reasons that you hear most often for why your solution or your product won't meet their needs. So here's a quick example from a company called Judy Food. I worked on a project for this company through the brand workshop at Cal State Long Beach, which is a great program. Judy Food is a company that was started by Judy Hildebrand. She started this company as a vegan food delivery program, but it grew over the years, and when we were working with her, she had a product line of 3 different vegan dips or spreads, and they were sold in the refrigerated section in boutique markets, mostly in the Midwest United States. So we were working on new packaging and new branding for her company. And one of the first activities we did was a buyer persona exercise. Here's one of the personas we came up with. So first thing you'll notice is that we have a big picture of her on the slide, so it's really easy to visualize who she is. This is Lisa. She's 35. She lives in Baltimore, Maryland. She owns a small clothing store, and she's a busy mom of 2. So she has to split her time between running her shop and taking care of her kids. She likes to eat healthy, but she's also adventurous, and she likes to try new things. She likes to try new kinds of food. She has some challenges. She struggles to find both healthy and interesting foods so that the kids also enjoy what she's cooking. And she really, really cares about quality ingredients. Here's a little more about Lisa. She likes to get referrals from other women, especially other moms. This means a lot to her when she's making choices. Even though she probably gets a ton of emails every week or every day, she always reads the weekly newsletter that she gets from Whole Foods. She has a Facebook account. She has an Instagram account. The food she buys has to be controversial. It has to be free of controversial ingredients. She's always checking the labels. But like we said before, even though she likes healthy food, it has to taste good. So now we're starting to see how a buyer persona can create a very rich and detailed description of the person we're trying to reach. There are a few principles of persona profiles that we should follow, and I'm going to talk about each of these in more detail, starting with focusing on behavior. You'll notice when I talk about Lisa, our sample persona, I know her background information, but I'm really interested in what she does and what her behavior is. So let's look at this description that takes it a little bit further. Lisa is a busy working mother. Eating tasty and flavorful foods gives her a sense of adventure in her otherwise busy and sometimes mundane schedule. And showing her children that healthy food can be tasty and fun makes her feel like a good mom. Lisa checks her social networks regularly on her smartphone and enjoys her recipe-focused emails from Whole Foods. If she gets a recommendation from another mom, she's sure to take it. So now you're getting to see a little bit more about Lisa and who she is and how she behaves. Principle 2, keep it fictional but realistic. These personas are fake people. They're not actual customers and they're not people that you know. And that's really important because this allows you to generalize the characteristics. And it avoids attributing minor personality differences or quirks to personas that aren't actually relevant to them at all. Principle 3, use imagery. So you saw the big photo of Lisa, and here's a few more examples. All of these are stock photos that I've pulled off of the internet. You definitely don't have to run around taking photos of your customers, if they would even let you do that. But you want to put some visuals behind your persona to give them life and to get you really imagining this persona as a person. If you want to get really detailed, you can find photos that represent them even further. So you can find a photo that represents their workspace, what their home life is like, what car they drive, what gym they go to, and any images that help you tell the whole story of this person. And speaking of stories, you should tell one. Just like pictures, stories can tell more than just a list of information. I didn't have much room here on this slide, but you can see my short story on Lisa, and you start to get more detail. And the other thing is it's much more memorable, so you can actually remember who this persona is and what they want and what they like. The final principle is to pick only a few. The idea here is that we're really trying to focus our marketing efforts. So ideally, you would just choose one persona to focus on. It's okay to have secondary personas though, if you are thinking of expanding your efforts or you feel a strong need to differentiate between various customer bases, then you can always have a few additional personas, but keep them as limited and focused as possible. You can also have negative personas, and these are people that you don't want to sell to, or you just don't want them as customers. And this is really helpful because what it does is it helps you to avoid putting your efforts towards people that aren't a good fit for your business. Here's another example from Judy Food. This one is a negative buyer persona. We call John the non-experimental. So he was a negative buyer persona that's in direct contrast with Lisa. Here's a little bit about John. He works for an online sports magazine. He's a bachelor who likes to balance work and play. He doesn't like to waste time trying new things, so he's really set in his ways. He has different struggles than Lisa, obviously. He struggles to get food fast, so he often eats out. And he wants things that are not only fast, but familiar and as cheap as possible. He gets his information from commercials that are shown during the sporting events that he watches on TV, and he uses Instagram, Snapchat, and he dates online. Basically, John would be uninterested in purchasing Judy Food because he doesn't care about healthy food, he doesn't enjoy trying new things, he sticks just to his shopping list, and he only really buys the things that are used for meals he knows and likes, or he goes out and he eats out. So now we'll move on to how you actually go about getting the information to create your buyer personas. You're going to want to start with some research. And the most obvious people to research are your customers. You can pick up the phone and you can talk to your actual customers and conduct one-on-one interviews with them. You can try live intercepts of potential customers. This is where you would approach people who may be interested in your product and ask them questions. So for example, if you're a retail store, you can stop people that are shopping around and ask them questions. You can hold more traditional focus groups with potential or current customers. Or you can have customers fill out qualitative surveys. Though I prefer the interview method myself because it really allows you to dig a little bit deeper. So the best people to interview are definitely your customers, but if you don't have good access to your customers, you can also interview your internal sales and customer service team. These people that are working for your company, they're the ones that are interacting with your customers most often, and they're likely to know a lot about their personality traits and behavior. They might know what they like, what they dislike, what they're complaining about, what kind of information they're looking for, and where they're looking for it. So when you're conducting your interview, you will want to create a persona questionnaire with all of the questions that you want to ask. There are tons of templates that exist online that you can find with a simple search. But you really want to create something that's suitable for your unique business. I'm not going to include questions here because aside from background information and demographics, questions will differ from company to company. So take a look at what's out there online and start picking and choosing questions that fit best for your business. What you'll want to do is standardize your questions as much as possible to begin with so that you start by asking all your interviewees the same question. However, I also recommend that you leave them open-ended. You don't want to ask yes or no questions or multiple choice questions, not early on, because it limits the amount of information you can get from your customers. You want to ask them open-ended questions and then ask them clarifying questions. Ask them why. Continue to ask them why to get additional information. And in the end, if you want to get really informed or you just love numbers, you can take your questions and you can take your top responses that you found in your qualitative interviews and you can turn them into a quantitative survey. And look at that, we're already at the recap. Creating buyer personas helps you understand the goals and behaviors of your audience, and it makes it easier to create content that addresses their needs. You'll want to follow 5 principles of buyer personas, including focusing on behavior and telling stories. and use a detailed questionnaire to interview and research your personas. Thank you again for joining me on this presentation on buyer personas. If you have any questions or if you would like to work together creating buyer personas, you can visit my website.